You went from Air Force, 6 years, reserve, got out, joined the Army, medical corps, got
Yeah,
med boarded. And you
yeah.
said 16 years?
It was a
Six?
total service of 16 years, and I was right there. I could have,
Man,
if I could have did 4 more years and been done. But
man.
you got to. One of the things that I've learned is that you just got to know when it's time to fold them, and either I didn't want to leave military service on a negative note. I've had some very high experiences, man, and the things that I've been able to do and see. Uh, 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 and I'll just be you'll find I'm very candid. So there's no that a black boy from North Philadelphia may not have ever seen things, and like being in Germany and going to different places like that. So for me, it was like, man, I got 16 years. I don't want to end that on a bad note, but my body just told me when it's time to fold, and that's what I did.
How long were you in, brother?
Well, so I have a very interesting background. So I was Air Force originally, and I started, yeah, Air Force. Yep. I did that for a period of 6. I was in the reserves. So I did that for 6 years, and then got out and got a real job and decided that I needed to, do something else. So I went into work in investment banking, and then I was there in New York during 9/11, and decided that after being there, decided that I wanted to do something a little bit more in my life. I was 25 at the time, and I was like, I got to do something else. I want to give back. I want to do more. And so my aunt's a nurse, and so she decided to. She talked to me about being a nurse, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Anyway, long story short, I'm quite sure we'll get into it. But here comes I went to nursing school. Here comes the Army, and the Army's like, "Hey, we'll send you over to Germany," and I did that for a total service of 16 years before I got med boarded.
Yeah.
So
16 years. So you went from Air Force, 6 years, reserve, got out, joined the Army, medical corps, got
Yeah,
med boarded. And you
yeah.
said 16 years?
It was a
Six?
total service of 16 years, and I was right there. I could have,
Man,
if I could have did 4 more years and been done. But
man.
you got to. One of the things that I've learned is that you just got to know when it's time to fold them, and either I didn't want to leave military service on a negative note. I've had some very high experiences, man, and the things that I've been able to do and see. Uh, 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 and I'll just be you'll find I'm very candid. So there's no that a black boy from North Philadelphia may not have ever seen things, and like being in Germany and going to different places like that. So for me, it was like, man, I got 16 years. I don't want to end that on a bad note, but my body just told me when it's time to fold, and that's what I did.
Wow. This is going to be a good one, Yogi. I think we're going to get this one's going to be a really good episode. Let's go
Yeah.
ahead and hit that intro
before
up.
we get started, do you have any questions for us?
No, I guess the only question that I would have is at the end of this, would it be possible, because I have a YouTube channel and I have, I'm going to be developing my podcast eventually, would it be okay to take some content and put it on my channel as well and surface it, make sure it says Miltivet?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
dude.
There's no greater honor than sharing and cross-pollinating between both one another. You know what I mean? It will take us, and by us I mean Chris, because he's the master editor.
Oh, wow.
I don't want any stolen valor when it comes to that. But Chris is the
Don't worry. If he steals my valor, I'll hunt him down.
So
Be creeping around like.
I would say a couple weeks before we get the released edited version. But once we have it, we'll share. We'll love to share it with you, and then that way we can release it together at the same time, and
That's
then
perfect.
create a massive ruckus all the way across.
Yeah, listen. Yeah, and before we start, like I just want to tell you that I'm just very thankful to have this opportunity to just be able to speak to you and your audience, and just to share some insights about my experiences and things that I've learned and growth that came with the transition, even up to now. So,
yeah. Oh, dude, like the honor's really ours. It really is, man. We love this, man. It's like I come out of here and I feel like I just ate a bunch of spinach and I feel like Popeye running around. You know, maybe terminology there, brother.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
Like,
in your case it would be crayons, right? Is that correct?
No, it's not crayons. That's the Marine.
Man.
Oh boy!
I'm messing with you.
Or
Good
hey,
stuff,
how about
guys.
this would be Jerome right here, man. He'd be like, I'm PCSing.
No, that was the first part. That was the first part of it.
Hey guys, I'm back. This is Army boot camp, huh? I'm ready. Let's go.
Let's go. Oh man. Well, that was the chair force. That was the chair force experience. Yeah.
It's like, bro, you see the new relaxing butt seat chairs? The M1 25-100? No, come on.
What?
No, I wasn't issued that. I was issued the M110. Man, I want one of those. I had to get, you have to like pump yourself up.
Right.
Sorry, man.
It's not electronic.
You gotta think smart though, bro. You gotta think smart. You gotta think smart about what you're doing, man.
Bro, I could chill my chair with Chat GPT. I would like to lean back a little bit. My circulation, or Chat GPT's like, your circulation's low. Raise up.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh boy.
All right, Jerome. I'm gonna hit the logo, and then I'm gonna introduce us.
Okay. Good? Yeah, man, that's good.
Return to Roots podcast. Welcome. Today we bring you Jerome Spearman. Jerome, welcome to the show.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. It's already exciting already.
Yeah, man. Hey, like I said earlier, brother, the honor's all ours. We're super happy to have you here. And before we go deep into this podcast, let's get your contact information out there. How can everybody that's listening right now get a hold of you?
Yeah. They can reach me. They can go to my website, www.openranksnc.com, or they can also send me an email at support@openranksnc.com. I am also on LinkedIn under Jerome Spearman. You can find me there as well. Those are the ways to contact me.
Yeah, man. So when you were transitioning out of the Air Force and Army, what kind of media, what kind of podcast, book, or TV show or documentary or whatever it is, what kind of media did you wish that you had in your hands while you're going through your transition?
Well, with the Air Force, it really wasn't that much of a transition because I just went right. I was in the reserves. It was in the Air Force Reserve. So I was already working or actually going to school and then eventually transitioned to work. So it really wasn't a big deal. The biggest transition for me was when I left active duty in 2018. And to answer that question, the one book Actually, there's a few books, but the one book that I would really wish that I had at that point, at that time, was called The Transition Playbook. I did not get access to this, but I saw online there was a gentleman by the name, actually a fellow, one of your boys. He's a Marine, Caesar Nadar. He had a YouTube channel, and it was talking about the transition process. See, because when I was transitioning, I didn't get the full year experience that most got. Probably you gentlemen got. I got 6 months. 6 months, simply because I was going to go. They wanted to send me to Fort Hood, Texas. My mother-in-law had dementia at that time, and it wasn't the best time for me to go unaccompanied. And so I decided to stay and get out and stay in here in Washington. But anyway, the playbook that Caesar Nader talked about basically helped you to identify the who instead of the what. One of the big things that I found from that book, or from watching his videos, and if you can find it out there, please take a look at it if you're transitioning. He says it's not about the what, right? Because when we're transitioning, we're thinking about, what am I going to do, right? What is it that I'm going to do now? But he challenged me to think about, well, what is the who? Who are you as you are going through this? I'm no longer Captain Spearman. I'm no longer, this, a soldier. I am. So the question that he kind of got us to start thinking about, got me to start thinking about as I was dropping my packet to get out, is, who are you now? So hopefully that answers your question. I can go way deep into that, and we can walk wherever direction you want to go with that. But that will be the one book that, if you find out, that's available, is called The Transition Playbook by Caesar Nadar. Look him up on YouTube as well.
Now, let me ask you, right? So you went through the Air Force, which
Mhm.
most of us that never went to the Air Force think that that's, rainbows and unicorns. You have your own, you know, VIP room, your barracks are amazing, everything, right? You started your
Defects
career
are
there.
amazing. BPXs are the best.
The grounds is
Base
perfect.
locations are the best. I mean, grounds are perfect.
You can
They
find
have
a
mints on
job,
their pillows.
right?
They don't even know what a tent looks like. They've never been underway out to sea. I mean,
I tell
oh,
you
oh,
one thing.
sorry, Yogi. Was this your question? Oh man, let me get back.
I tell you one thing, they have, I do believe they've changed their boot camp though. Like, when I went through, you only, believe it or not, like, you only shot the M9 like once. And so when I got to the army, it was like, what is this? What is going on? But yeah. So I'm sorry, Yogi. What was your question? Let me get back to you.
No. Finish with your story, what you were gonna say,
Yeah,
since
yeah.
Chris
So
really interrupted us.
I would never interrupt you guys. Come on, let's rewind the take. I'm pretty sure what. Yeah, it was me.
yeah. No, I mean, it was, so how I got to the Air Force was, my dad was in the Air Force. He was like, son, you just go to the Air Force. So I said, all right, fine. That's all I knew. And then as I went to the Air Force, you had to take tests and all this other stuff to get promotions. And it was a different experience, right? It was, you had it was a little bit, I'm going to say, uh I wouldn't say elitist, but it was very like, you walked into a base, and the grounds were very nicely manicured. The barracks were decent. When we did go on missions, we did stay, like, as enlisted. I did stay with another airman, but it was still in a very clean environment and clean room. But basic training was just, it really wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Like I said, we only shot the nine once, and that was it. So we ran, we took tests, we did classes, got our little Dynabands and did our little exercises, and that was that. It was a wrap for 6 weeks. For 6 weeks, actually. It wasn't, I think now it's 8 weeks or 12 weeks. I'm not sure. But that's been over 20 years ago. So things may have changed.
And so you started there, then you got out,
Hmm.
then 9/11 happened, and then you joined the military again into the army.
Hmm.
Why? So you mentioned it a little bit right now, but why the massive change in between what the rest of us, right, would think it would usually go the other way around, right? You would first start in the army and then say, nope, I want to go to the Air Force, right, to kind of hang out. What triggered that different mindset?
I think it was a recruiter, the recruiters. So let me just tell you this. Got out, was there, went to worked in investment banking in New York for a period of time, was there for 9/11. Was like, look, I'm doing something else different. My aunt's a nurse. She said, you should become a nurse. I said, are you kidding me? I'm an investment banker. I was doing very well. Life was great, except for when we had and I experienced 9/11. And then one of my fraternity brothers was like, dude, man, you need to really consider thinking about becoming a nurse because you could be a CRNA, you have a longevity, a lot of, career wise. You can also plan the rest of your life as a nurse once you get the license. I'm like, oh, okay. So I can bridge the gap between business and also healthcare. Was always interested in science. So anyway, went to Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia, studied nursing there, and here comes the recruiters. At this time, we're in the middle of OEF and OIF. And so the Air Force recruiter guy was like, hey man, so we're looking to have people come, back and have people join the Air Force. And the Army guy was there too, because they came and did the presentation of both. The Air Force guy was first, the Army guy was second. Anyway, the Air Force guy was like, I talked to him afterwards. He was like, hey man, so how much do you weigh? I told him. He said, can you drop like 50 pounds? I was like, 50 pounds for what? He's like, well, that's the standard. So, okay. I said, he said, well, how many loans do you have? I said, dude, I have $85,000 worth of loans. Are you going to like contribute and pay something towards this? Yeah, no, like we'll give you like maybe $10,000 or so. And of that, you have to pay taxes on. So yeah, unfortunately, that's that. I said, okay, well, can I go overseas or something like that? And he was like, yeah, no, we'll probably send you to Florida somewhere or maybe Virginia. I don't know, but it'll be stateside. So here comes the Army guy. He was like, hey man, what did he say? Sergeant First Class Lawrence. He's now a PA and now an officer. He said, hey man, what did he say? And I told him, he was like, look, you think you dropped 10? I said, yeah, man, I could drop 10. He said, where you want to go? I said, can I go to Germany? He was like, yeah, sure, we can do that. Because Lawrenceville Regional Medical Center was right there, and we were taking all of, the injured from OEF and OEF there. And then he was like, yeah, sure. You might have to do some other time somewhere else, but yeah, sure, we could do that. And then he said, how much loan you have? I said, 85,000. He's like, you want to take out another 20,000? I'm like, what? So wait, I get to take out another $20,000 and you'll pay it all back? He said, yeah. I said, okay, let's go. Signed up right then and there. And I would tell you that I'm actually very glad about that experience of joining the Army. When I went to Officer Basic School, OCS, it was a total different experience there because, we talk about PT. The Air Force was like, okay, guys, let's get all around in our little, let's get all around in our little circle and get our Dynabands and do our little,
You guys are doing your J
yeah,
Fondas and all that fun stuff.
yeah, do all the tension stuff. You know what I mean? And then,
Yeah, you're wearing your tight spandex, the different color
right,
80s
right,
flashback a little bit,
and the Air Force shorts was all cut off. You know what I mean? Way above the knee, a little cutty above the knee there. So anyway, with the Army, it was like when they came to PT, man, they were pumped. I mean, it was like, yo, 1-0, 1-1. I mean, I was like, what is going on in here? They were hype for PT, like hype. And that energy that, I could, I've learned so much just by being in the Army. And it didn't really matter to me. It didn't really matter to answer your question, Yogi. It didn't really matter to me about the differences of whether or not it was Air Force or Army. It was where I was supposed to be. It was where I was supposed to be, right? If I was supposed to be in the Air Force, I would have been there. I wasn't supposed to be there. I was supposed to be in the Army to be able to experience and see and work with soldiers and Marines and airmen and contractors and our friendly forces who were injured. So anyway, that's we could go 20 million different ways. You just let me know where you want to go and let's do it.
No, that's beautiful, man. If you could give some advice to yourself, let's say you could go back in time to before you even enlisted in the Air Force, right?
Mm.
Or before you joined the Army the second time, what advice would you give yourself that would say, hey, this, if you do this, this is gonna make you successful during your military career?
Um, be open to experiences. Be open to the fact that you are not going to be right all the time. When you feel that immediate anxiety that pops up sometimes when you're in situations where you may not have all the supplies that you need. You may not have all the personnel that you need in order to get the mission done, but somehow, some way, the mission still gets done. When you feel that anxiety, though, understand that this is just a growth period. This is for you to grow and to learn and to experience all that is there for you. And to understand, I think the other thing I would say to myself while I was in the military is that the opportunity is truly yours to build and shape your career that could have impacts after you leave the military. So for me, it would be open to all of the experiences and then also take the hard missions, take the hard. For me, I was an OR nurse, and so I walked into a new, my new base at Joint Base Lewis McChord at Magar Army Medical Center, and I told him right from the gate, I want to take the hardest courses. I want to take the hardest cases. I want you to give me the hardest nurse to work with. I want the hardest missions, the hardest experiences. Why? Because that's going to develop me all throughout the rest, not even in my military career, but it will give me the skills when I leave the military that in the event that when I go through that transition, it may be hard. It may be some challenges, but you have to take them and understand that take them meaning the challenges and understand that it's growth that is there. So last thing I would say is understand that there's going to be some failures. I yeah, I believed that there was a no fail scenario in my career. And some of that came from the culture. There's a no fail mission. No fail, no fail, no fail. But if there was no fail, then where would the growth come from? So I say all that to say, man, hopefully I answered your question. If I didn't, please redirect me. But I say all that to say those are the things that I would have told myself what I would have wished that I would have known, because I came in a little like, oh, I'm just going to do my job and just go home. And eventually, as I started to see the opportunities that could avail themselves, everyone else was conforming and doing that. I'm gonna go in and do my job and I'm gonna go home. Well, what about the other opportunities that are there when you took those hard missions and those hard courses, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, brother. I love that. And a kind of a analogy that helps me really reflect on my times whenever I'm in the fire, as I say, is, you know, you don't just have um, you just don't have a knife, right? This knife, this knife was put under fire before it was turned into knife.
Mm,
The metal was not. It didn't just happen, right? So before this knife can exist, it's got to go through um, heat. It's got to go through pressure. It's got to go through pain. It's got to go through failure. It's got to go through sweat, blood, health, family issues. It's got to go through all that stuff before it gets pressed and forged and smacked and slammed against the rock or forging stone
right,
before it becomes a knife.
right,
And then it's a knife afterwards.
right.
You can't become
Hmm.
that next level thing without going through the forge.
That's true. I would agree with you, and I would say, you in one of your questions you asked, what would be the one media or book or whatever that you would recommend to yourself if you were transitioning? I would first say, the other thing I would say is, take a look at or listen to a gentleman by the name of Earl Nightingale. Um, uh, he had a very I listened to him late in my career now. I wish I listened to him when I was on active duty. Um, and he had I guess it was a book that talked about the strangest secret. And I was like, what is this strangest secret this dude's talking about? He says that he defines what the success is. It is the progression towards a worthy ideal, constantly progressing towards something. That progression is what will help you to become whoever you want to be, but you have to first to identify who you are, and then beyond that, peel that back a little bit more to find, when you say define who you are, like me, like my name is Jerome Spearman, I'm a registered nurse. No, I am not a registered nurse. I had to go through the process of defining who I truly am. And the transition, I'm not sure if we're getting to that point or not, so sorry if I'm jumping ahead. Okay. But the transition is an opportunity for us to begin to peel back some of those layers to say, who are you now? So let's walk through that. I am not a registered. So when we think about, like in the Army, I am the creed, right? I am. So who are you? You get an opportunity to write your new creed. And for me, it was, I am an educator. I am a motivator. I am a servant leader. Those are the basics of the DNA of who I truly am. So when we think about the transition process, and I think about my experience, I had to define that first and not conform to what someone else told me what I should be, because I had that experience for years. I had that experience where someone else told me where to go, where to be. And now I have that opportunity to define where and who I am and where I want to go. And understand too that that is a process of change.
Now, I'm glad that you talked about the change part, right? And you mentioned that your transition out of the military was not what you expected or wanted to be, right?
Mhm.
So with that in mind, what advice, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself, and how early would you give yourself this advice to be able to be successful during your transition, your reintegration back into the civilian life?
I think that it is important. The minute that you start thinking that this might be it for me, is no longer fun. It is the minute that you need to start thinking about how am I, two things. One, how am I going to take command? Because when I get my DD 214, they're passing the guide on to me. How am I going to take command now of my own company, right? And then there you go. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. That's your guide on. And so the next step is, how am I going to take command of my health? I think when we go through the transition process, it is very much like, oh, we got a plan for you guys. Come on to SFL Tap. We're going to sit there. We're going to sit you down for 4 days. We're going to give you everything you need to be successful. And as long as you follow this plan, get your resume, get a job, you'll be well on your way. Well, I would tell you from my experiences, that was not the case. It just was not the case. So the advice that I would give myself or give anyone who's going through this process is start early. And Caesar Nadar talks about that. But start early enough the minute that you start thinking that, hey, this might be it. I think I may need to start thinking about the who, right? And I keep mentioning that, the who. The second thing is understand that this is a change that not only impacts you, but impacts everyone else around you. I thought, and when I went through the process, I was like, this is just, I got this. I got this. This is me. It's my process. I know what I'm doing. I didn't really involve my wife because I didn't want her to be stressed out. And I just want to control the narrative and control the stress and bring everything down to a level set where I got this. But really, really, when I look back at it, I really did not have it. I thought I had it, but I did not have it. Had I used or worked better and communicated better with my wife, who was asking to be a part of the process, maybe the stress of the 6 months of finding a job would not have been so stressful. So to understand that it is a change, and in change management we call it. Have you ever heard of ADKAR? The ADKAR process, which is you have to have an awareness of a change that's coming, the desire to change, the knowledge that you're going to have to identify those knowledge gaps. And then you need to be able to adjust yourself to figure out how you can reinforce those knowledge gaps, right? So when you're in the process of transitioning, you are aware that you're transitioning because it's happening. It's not going backwards. You can recall it back, but if you're going through it, you're going through it. The desire to change, forget it. Everybody, forget about it. Everybody comes in, they leave. There's a desire that you have to change. So that desire is built in. But the piece is that's a little bit difficult is the knowledge gap. What gaps do you have in your knowledge base of what's coming? So that gap is the who, understanding the who, but then also understanding what type of job do I want? So here's a question that I ask you. What do you really want? What do you really want? What would make you happy? What do you really want? Is it a job? Is it being a fisherman and cleaning fish on the back of a boat? Is it, well, I'm talking to two sailors, so probably so. But
I'm good. Never seen a boat, ship ever again.
We did have that
No.
knife, so you probably did like scale some fish in the back of the boat. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm scaling fish. Mm-hmm.
So if you had that, now what else is missing there? I need to get my resume together, right? I need to get everything squared away. I got to find a job. All that creates stress. But if we approach it in a way where it's okay, I know where I'm going because I know who I am. I know what I want to do. And what I want to do, let me tell you a story about a guy, man, who was a good friend of mine who was a in the Air Force. So he was transitioning, and he said, I said, hey man, listen, you got all these skills. You could be a human resource officer, you could be or any of these companies here in Seattle, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, hey man, listen, thank you for the opportunity to connect me with folks. But when I close my eyes and I look and find out who I am and what I want to do, I see myself speaking in front of like a TEDx group. I see myself speaking to thousands of people on a stage, and that's where I'm headed. And he was so freaking crystal clear about what he wanted to do that I was so impressed. I wasn't that clear. I didn't have that clarity. So, what I would advise you, and we wrap this up. Sorry, I'm taking so long, but what I would advise is that you take the time to gain clarity. How do you get that clarity, though? That's the biggest question. It's by actually sitting down and pen the paper. There is something to writing something out. What is it that you want? Who are you now? The military has defined who you are, but understand that many of us who come in don't come out the same way. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm just going to put that out there. If you came in some way, a certain way, and you came out the same way, wow, that's interesting.
Came in $150, left 210. Yeah. Yeah, it was all
Anyway.
muscle. Yeah.
Anyway, I hope I answered your question, man.
You did, and I want to highlight a little part of it, right? As someone that myself, I'm currently going through a med board, right?
Mhm.
I was lucky enough to bridge the gap of the 20 years, right? Unfortunately, you were not a part of that, um, and it really sucks, right? Especially because you wanted to be there, you wanted to reach that level. Um, However, right, this is from someone that is, I've done aviation. My mindset has always been on that track. We think that the medical, whether it's the corpsmen, the nurses, anyone that works in the medical facility knows what a med board and the process and how those things are supposed to work, right? Can you share a little bit about your experience and also what advice you would give to someone going through a med board about the process? Because as you and I both know, it is extremely murky water, right? And part of it, at least from my experience, right, the only thing that I've been able to um, take from this that I can share openly to everybody is that each med board is tailored individually to that specific person. And
Sure.
that's what makes the meta board extremely murky, right? Because no advice is the same for everybody. However, as a medical professional, the
Mhm.
rest of us that are not there, we expect you to be the master and the knowing all of this kind of system. First off, is that a true fact? Is that even possible? And then
Mhm.
second of all, can you share what advice you would give if you could go back to yourself before you knew that the metaboard was going to happen, um, to be able to navigate that metaboard adequately?
Yeah. So let me answer the first question. So no one really, if you think about the medical side or any branch, really knows about that medical board process. Now, let me ask you a question. Why do you think that is?
Because nobody really goes through it. Nobody experiences it, and
Right.
it's
They don't stick around once they go through it.
that too.
They're like deuces, bro. I'm out of this piece. Um, well, I think part of the thing is we are not trained medically. We are not trained to understand a medical board. We are trained to, you know, go through our everyday, working in the hospital or working in the field, battle missions to take care of soldiers, right? In your case, the corpsman would be there to take care of, you seamen. So the thing there, yeah, just so,
Mm,
so the thing there would be, we are not trained, and in my case the army did not train any of us to learn what the medical board process is, because the honest to god truth, I believe they really want you to be there to stick around because they need you for these missions and to do things that the army and the navy and the military needs to get done. So no one's really going to, so we're all coming into this process, medical folks, aviation folks, logistics folks, all of us are coming to this process where we do not understand the two main systems that are clashing and coming together. Now, what are those two systems? You have the DoD system and their regulations. In my case, it was the Army regulations. In your case, it's the Navy regulations. And then there's the VA disability regulations, all coming together. And oh, by the way, the military is going to say, we're going to give you a briefing. And in this 2-hour briefing, we're going to cram everything down your throat. You're used to getting information so quickly. So just get this information quickly, and then we'll square your way, make sure you know everything that you need to know. That answer is wrong. Please do not go into that experience that way. Now, what advice would I give? I'm going to give the advice that my lawyer gave me when he sat me down when I went to go see him for the first time before I got my med MEB proceeding ratings. He says, "So tell me, why are you here?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Why are you here?" He said, "I'm just asking you these two questions. Why are you doing this? Why are you here? And who are you doing this for?" He said, "You don't even have to answer the question, but I just want you to think about that, because when the times get tough, and they may get tough, you have to understand why you are doing this and who you're doing it for. Because there may be situations where the military may not see the story that you want them to see. So you are going to have to figure out how to get them to understand your story and your medical story with clarity." He said to me, "Once you understand and answer those two questions, come back and see me." I saw him the next day and I answered them. "I'm doing this because I looked at myself at 80 years old, laying in the bed. My wife can't take care of me. We have to sell our house because I don't have the medical care to take care of myself. Nope, no go, not doing that. I'm doing this because there are disabilities that should be addressed, that did occur while I was on active duty, and I want those conditions to be addressed. And not only addressed, but addressed in a way that I can be taken care of when I am 80." And then the last, and so I say all that to say that when we look at the medical board, you got to understand those two questions. And I'm doing it for myself and my family. So the advice that I would give you is the same advice he gave me, which is also, what type of passenger do you want to be in this car called the medical board? Do you want the army's driving it, the military's driving this, but do you want to be in the passenger side? Do you want to be in the back seat, or do you want to be in the trunk? Which one you want to be? Because if I'm going to be in the passenger side, like my wife, she's like, why are we turning left? You could go right. It's easy that way. Oh, I just like taking a big old turn here to see the roads. But no, 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 no. We could have, you taken this 20 minutes out the way. You could have cut that down to 15 by going another direction. She is an active partner in this car. So when we think about the medical board, you have to understand the regulations, the laws and the regulations for both the military as well as the regulations and laws for the VA disability. because when it comes down to it, when you have to perhaps do a formal board, it's all on you to tell them the story. My lawyer told me help you to help them understand your entire story. If you don't know your medical story, if you can't articulate it effectively, that's a problem. We need to be able to communicate in a very sit rep way, very like succinct way of what happened from the beginning to the present and present it in a timeline fashion. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And I would like to elaborate a little bit about how you went through the darkness that
Mhm.
surrounds somebody that's in that medical process, whether they're injured warrior or limb which is light limited duty, uh, or they're in the med board. How did you deal with that? That darkness of rumors, the imposter syndrome hitting you up super hard, uh, feeling like you let your team down, you let your family down, that feeling of having to deal with all your medical issues. Now now you're getting out, your job, all that whole entire aspect. How did you manage all that, man?
That is a very good question, and I would tell you, you know, yes, you are in it. Like in my case, I was in my unit, and everybody knows. Commander knows that you are on this list. So if the commander knows, everyone else knows that you're on this list, and they know that you are getting out, and it's like, oh well, he's a slacker, he's a this or that. So it's a mindset shift. See, so in answer to your question, how did I deal with it? I went through that process of, man, this is crappy. I'm a failure. Because not only that, when I left active duty, went right into the reserves, I had challenges on my job, man. Like I did not transition well enough. Blew up on my, I'll be candid. Like I blew up on my boss. I told him he was incompetent because he just did not have a leadership direction. And I'm used to having some leadership and guidance and also giving that. And he just wasn't there, so I blew up. And I also will tell you that, and then going into the medical board, I went to the medical board as a reservist. So that's even a different situation, because now every week I'm in this situation where it's like I'm civilian and then I'm a military on the weekends, and on those weekends I'm going through this medical board process, and everybody knows. So it was a hard shift for me to really go through that. I talked to my VA counselor. I'll be straight up. I went and talked to my VA counselor. He walked me through that step by step. He said to me, okay, so do you believe that what they believe is really true? And I said, well, I mean, I didn't, I'm not going to finish. I mean, 16 years in, I got 4 years. I could have done it. He said, but do you believe what they believe is true? Did anyone actually tell you that? I said, no, but it's kind of like this implied thing. You could just tell people are staying away from you and all this stuff. And he said, okay, fine. If they're doing that, but it's all about answer my question. What do you believe? And if you believe that you are a loser, if you believe that you're Joe Duffel bag, if you believe that you are this person who's given up, then that is true. It's not what I believe myself to be. It's not what I think that think I am. It's what I think you think that I am. It's what I think, what I think about who I am. So it goes back to the I am. I am not this person. So so when I start transitioning my mindset to that point with my counselor, I was able to now think about it in a different light. So I go back in and I talk to my leadership and say, hey, I do have these challenges. I do have these situations. But I'm going to tell you what can I do in the unit right now that you need? We all know there's always something that needs to be done. There's always something that needs to get done. I'm willing to take those things on within my abilities. And they were like, well, okay. First Sergeant, what we got? You know what I mean, sir, what we got? Like, we started walking through all these different things, and I took on jobs that I could help still give back to the unit in whatever capacity that I can. Because you're going to get that profile that says you're light duty, you can't go to the range, you can't do this, you got a dead man's profile, they call it in the Army. Well, and that, if you believe that to be the case, then that will be the case.
So I love the fact that you're sharing about being able to essentially make lemonade out of lemons, right? Um, and I do share um, the process of the commands, making things a little bit more challenging due to the fact, as you mentioned, that they really don't know what you're going through, right?
Mm-mm.
One of the things that as everybody understands the process, and I even had to have this conversation today with my chain of command, was, well, the only important part is the VA, right? If you get your percentage with the VA, then you're all set. Well, no, there's two, or hey, don't worry about it. Or this is a very typical answer. Is like, hey, don't worry about it. When you get out, you can deal with this with the VA, right? Or the VA this, the VA that. No, there's two separate processes. One, as you mentioned, is the DoD, right? Which is what we are. In your case, you were reserves when you did this. My case, I'm still active duty. Um, and once that door is shut, it's shut forever. It never opens up again, right? So if you let the pressure of someone's perspective, whatever that perspective might be, even if they tell you openly that you're whatever, it doesn't matter. The only one, and I love what your lawyer told you, and I'll share with you what my lawyer told me. But because at the end of the day, that challenge, that physicality, that difficult time is not if it arrives, is when it arrives, how it arrives, and who's it gonna be coming from, right? Um, my mind you, right? I have over 20 years in the Navy, right? So I'm past that retirement age.
Sure.
So the common question amongst my chain of command and or my peers is, well, why are you doing this? You're gonna get your retirement anyways. And if you get your VA, or when you get your VA, as long as you document everything right now, when you get out, you can move it up to whatever percentage, right? You mentioned something that really resonated with me. It's not just about the percentage or the things, right? It's about making sure that it's properly tracked and documented. Um, I had a senior officer, doctor, that his first advice to me, and he was the first doctor that I saw here in San Diego. Chief, just retire, drop your papers, and get out. The VA will take care of you on the outside. And coming from a senior officer, that made sense to me. I was like, hey, it makes sense. Having zero experience, never really going through this medical process and or thinking, um, I was like, well, that makes sense, right? It shouldn't be that challenging. That's what the VA is there for. Um, they are meant to take care of me. Luckily, Chris here, uh, was able to connect us with an outside network, which was Maurice Wilson, which is one of our biggest mentors. He's actually on the first few episodes here, the San Diego Veterans Coalition, and other things that luckily broke through that gap, right, of mindset and thinking. Um, because if for me at this age, at 22 years in the military, at this rank, it was so easy to almost bamboozle me. What happens to someone, with
Mhm.
junior experience, right? And actually, that's one of the biggest reasons why this podcast even exists in the first place. Um, if we can make the mistake of choosing to get out without properly taking care of ourselves in the VA side and the DoD side, we're screwing the rest of our lives, not just for ourselves, but for our children and our family. And
Mm.
we're becoming a burden for things that should have been taken care of. Um, so my lawyer, when I first met my lawyer, uh, I was already in the mindset of, well, I'm just gonna drop my papers and get out, right? But when I talked to him, he asked me the same question. Is like, why are you here? And I told him, I was like, I'm here because I want to fight to stay in the Navy. But you're already at 20. Why are you fighting? Because I want to stay in. I love what I do. I love what I've done. I want to stay in and, 30 years plus if I can. Um, Everything in my career has been amazing. But even before that, the reason why I joined the Navy was because I'm a first generation immigrant and I wanted to leave my legacy behind in the military, right? And what did that mean to me? That meant achieving the highest rank I could possibly get, leaving my record untarnished so that whatever generational family tree member ever wants to look at me for inspiration or for a point of reference, they can look at me and say, hey, my great grand uncle was in the military, right? And he was a chief, right? So I wanted to make senior chief, which I was on track at the time, and then hopefully master chief. Um, and I told him that, and he laughed, and I was like, "Wait, that's not nice. Like I'm telling you my whole life story here, right?" Uh, and he's like, "It's not disrespect, um, but I'm gonna tell you what happens." And honestly, I'm tired of you people. And I was like, "Whoa, dude! Like easy. Like these are fighting words, right?" He's like, "You people always come here with this mindset, but as soon as things start getting rough, you drop your papers, you get out, and instead of one taking care of your actual medical board and seeing it through and getting your benefits that you need, you get out. Not only is that a waste of time of my part, but you're wasting your time, your benefits, and your family. And then this is the part that pisses me off the most about you people is that after you get out, you want to reach back out to me and say, hey, um, this is not working the way it was supposed to, or I didn't get the rating that I was supposed to. Um, can you help me? The answer is no, I can't. Like I am legally bound to not be able to help you, unfortunately. And that breaks my heart. I joined this profession to help you. It's completely underpaid, completely over
Work.
um, worked. It's thankless. Yet it breaks my heart when you walk through the door and you don't do needed to get you where I need you to get you across the line. So I'm gonna ask you,
Mhm.
and I want you to think about this. Are you willing to stick it through, thick and thin? Because there's gonna be a lot of thick and very thin to actually go through this. And I was like, well, I understand the you people thing because I still had to get him past that point.
A little stuck there. A little stuck there, bruh.
Yeah, a little hurtful, right? Uh, but I'm like, that makes sense. If we ever get to that point after, we go through the medical proceedings, I still would like to continue going forward so that I can stay in. He's like, easy day. Just think about this conversation later on down the road. And I was like, all right, that's fair, right? Thank you for giving me the benefit of the doubt. Thank you for sharing that with me. And even though it was pretty pointed and a little aggressive and passive
Little
aggressive,
a little
you
knife
know,
handish.
right? I get where you're going with it, right?
Right.
And it continued that mindset and that thought. Things got hard, super hard, right?
Mm.
And they still are. Um, and that conversation has stuck with me every single day. And I mean, I'm reliving it right now as I'm sharing that with you, um, because had it not been for that guy and making a point of telling me that, I would have. Because the time came when I was like, you know what? I don't need this crap. I'm just gonna get out. I'm gonna move forward with my life. This is too much.
Mhm.
Um, that conversation came back and smacked me in the face.
Mm.
Uh, and it ended up changing where I was going and what I did, right? And then I've seen so many of my own brothers and sisters not go through the process
Mm.
and leave things on the table. And to me, it was never, and it still is never about the money. I don't care about the money. I've never cared about the money. The money will come and go, right?
Yeah.
It's about making sure. Had I listened to that first doctor and I would have gotten out, I would have made the biggest mistake of my life because until much later, actually, I didn't know that the only thing that I had in my medical record for what's going on right now, it was chronic pain. As someone that doesn't know anything about the medical system, to me, chronic pain is a diagnosis, right?
Mhm.
Turns out that chronic pain is not a diagnosis, it's a symptom of something else. Whatever that something else is, you have to go and get it investigated. Well, that was not shared, right? And I would have made a huge mistake and only gotten out with chronic pain and then fought for. I've seen people now that I talk to, and again, thanks to Chris for putting us in that room, um, that they deal for decades
Mhm.
trying to prove that something was service connected instead of being here.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like I've turned it into the yogi episode instead of the Jerome
No, that was a
episode. So my
that was a great.
apologies.
No, man, I thank you for sharing that. I want to be respectful of our time. I have some time still. I know we're over an hour, so I want to make sure I want to respect your time. Is it okay? We could still go forward, or what we got?
What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, man. So I think you really hammered down on mindset, brother. Um, what what did it take for you to find that purpose after the military, after you pulled that uniform off? Um, you're no longer Captain Spearman.
Hmm.
You're no longer
Yeah.
that department head or the
Yeah.
division off, division or whatever
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 it was.
position you held.
Yeah.
It's all gone. But what did it take, man?
It
What was it?
it it took me realizing that you cannot go forward by still having your hand looking at the past. I lived in the past of all the great experiences. So let me back up. Let me answer that. I gotta flip that for a second. When I transitioned, the transition mindset was um, I'm going to take everything that I learned from the military out, the warrior aspect, the good, bad, and indifferent. And I also took that, and we talked about it a little bit, the no fail mission. Everything was, there was no possibility of failure at all. And I transitioned that into civilian world life. And come to find out, I hit a very big brick wall because there's no such thing as no fail, because you will, I could tell you that. So to answer your question about finding that purpose, it took me 10 steps. It was a 10 steps to failure program. The first step was I failed, and then I learned a little bit. The second step is I had a little sail, like you two Navy guys love that, SAIL. And then the third one, it kicked my tail because I failed again, right? And I failed the fourth time. So I failed. I failed the fifth time. And I failed. I learned. And then I got to the sixth step and I sailed again a little bit, right? Everything's getting, man, that was tough. Then I got to the eighth step and everything was failing around me again. Then I finally nailed it at the ninth step in order to really tell the tale at the 10th step. TALE. So that process of going up those 10 steps, of failing to the degree where I was able to learn and find who I was. Now, where did I put him? See, because when I left the military service, it was like, oh, we Captain Spearman's coming out with Jerome Spearman. So we all good. So I'm going to go to this job. This job's going to tell me, oh, we want you to really change the world with us. We really want you to make all the great things happen for us. And we know that your military experience will make that happen. So come on aboard. Right? Yeah. And anyway, so now I get there and I come to find out that that's not really what they want. Hey, so you're a little how can I say it? Aggressive in your communication. Or hey, you're a little you don't see eye to eye on some of your ideas. I know we hired you to do these things, but we don't really see eye to eye. So could you put those things to the side and just be like a regular state? Because I worked for the Washington State system. Just be a regular state employee. Conform to who this person is. So now I'm in this cubicle filled with fresh off of active duty, with all this straight up like, yo, I'm ready to get it. You guys hired me. Let's go. To the point that I had to take that Captain Spearman and lock him, throw him down into a bottomless pit to never return. But at the end of the day, when I left that job and got fired from my next job, I'm being real with you. I got fired from my next job. And then I turned around, and through the medical board process, that's the reason why you may want to consider going through the medical board process, because you can get through the VRNE system. The VRNE program is very good for those who are in the medical board process. Ask a veteran who's trying to get into it and see how difficult it is. For you who are in the medical board, it's easier because they understand that you're being released because of a situation. Anyway, went through the VRNE process, failed out of that because I did not know who I was and what I wanted to do. I was trying to recreate this person, and the real person was sitting in the dungeon that I needed to go back and pull up. So through this experience of defining who I am, I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And that process of opening that door, to being an entrepreneur, man, you really will find who you are straight up 100%. And I will tell you, Chris and Yogi, it was a year and a half ago when I was able to go through the dark tunnel, as you mentioned, and to finally open that door, and there he was. Captain Spearman was there. I said, come on, man, let's go. Let's go. Let's take this world. Let's do what we're supposed to do. The warrior, because the warrior was back. I shut him away because that's not what they wanted me to present. And now I have an opportunity to present who I am. And that is the warrior. And so when we talk about this, when we talk about transition and veterans, this message is not just for those who are active duty. This message is for those who are veterans. Where are you? Where have you gone? Where's that warrior aspect that we get into? I look in these Facebook groups. I don't know what to do with my VA disability. Can somebody help me figure this out? I get it. It's new. It's a different process. But you know what my lawyer told me? You got to figure it out and get with the people who know how to do it and read the material. So how did I find that purpose? Was by actually identifying what I was supposed to do as my new mission. Here it is. I got off active duty 2018. It is now 2024. I was given my guide on back then. And over a year and a half ago, I finally found what that purpose is. And that is to work with veterans and also to work with service members to get them to understand and to motivate. I don't want to be an influencer. I want to be a motivator. That's who I am. I want to motivate you to get back to the basics. Let's go to basic training and dig and build and work together for whatever that is. If it's a job, if it's an entrepreneur, if you want to be a better father, be a better employee, be a better husband, or learn how to do your VA disability stuff, or be the warrior through the medical board process. Let's figure that piece out, but it takes work and it comes at a price. So, did I answer your question?
Oh yeah, brother.
I would say yes.
I like it. And I really like how you talked about entrepreneurship and how it took you down that road, because a lot of us, man, a lot of us would get out, we're like, hey, I don't know about you, but I can't do a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday after doing 20 years in the military. I'm like, hey, look, I did my time. Don't get me wrong. I did it. I was pretty good at it. Brought donuts in about twice a week because I was always late. No, I'm joking. Where am I? Some people on here are going to be like, that guy definitely brought some donuts in. No, but like that whole entire aspect of doing that, entrepreneurship looks a lot better, but you can't just jump right into it. It's not something that you can just jump right into. You got to prepare for it, and you got to hold on to that W-2 job for a little while. And I think veterans are some of the best entrepreneurs because they could leverage their skills, their discipline, the problem solving ability. They're able to work with very little. The leadership dynamics that they have, able to lead themselves, show up on time, be in the right place, right uniform, right equipment. Number two is teamwork. Teamwork leads to dream work. How many times have you heard that said, man?
Yeah, for sure.
that is for real. And if you can do that and you can build a team in an entrepreneurial role, my goodness, you're unstoppable. And the other one's flexibility. I mean, how many different jobs did you have in the Army?
At least, let's see, 8, 9 different jobs.
Yeah, man. And that's like 100% that flexibility that you learn to do all that, to change gears, to move around. You're going to need that as an entrepreneur. You're going to need to be your tax man. You're going to need to be the guy who's swinging the hammer. You're going to need to be the guy that's calling people up, sales, marketing, all that stuff. The community impact part as well. We're taught about the brotherhood. We're taught about the sisterhood. We're taught about taking care of each other. That's another aspect that we bring into entrepreneurship. And then continuous growth. We're taught if you're not learning and you're not growing, you're not going to become relevant in your field. Then you need to get out.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, can I ask you one question?
Yeah, bro.
Go
ahead.
No, he says no.
Yeah, don't listen to Yogi. I never do.
Yeah, don't wish for it, work for it.
Facts. That's a fact. That's a motivating statement if I've ever heard one from a motivator.
Yeah, there you go. I'm just reading what's on his wall right back there.
Oh yeah.
But did you find with entrepreneurship that it also exposed, or not exposed, but showed you some of the things that you needed to work on, and how perhaps sometimes you can get in your own way? You know what I mean? Did you ever see that?
Oh yeah, brother. I'm definitely in my way all the time, man.
I thought it was just me.
I put my foot in my mouth more times than I ever wanted to admit. I mess up. I think it's a place that I failed a lot more times than I would care to admit. But I wouldn't have any other way, man.
No.
Like for real. The freedom I have to work into things that matter to me. And everybody's like, "Oh, you're an entrepreneur. You got set hours." Yeah, 24/7, brother. 24/7.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that I appreciate that comment, and I will tell you it definitely, one of the things that the military did help me with becoming an entrepreneur, and not changing the concept or the topic, but getting up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning is just so easy. You know what I mean? Like, you get up 3 o'clock in the morning, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning for PT. That was normal, right? And then now I get up. My wife is like, "Why are you up, dude? It's like 4 o'clock." I'm like, "I'm already programmed, right?" Because I'm programmed to get up, but I'm getting up and I'm writing out the things that I need to do for the day. My mind is clear. I can start executing on things. So this way, when my competition is actually still in bed, I'm already ahead of the game. So I think that when we look at transition, we have to think about it from that perspective too. Like, you have to be ahead of the game. You're not the only one who's applying for these positions. You're not the only one that is out there transitioning. So it's beyond finding who you are, beyond finding yourself and going through that process. You have to understand, or you may want to consider,